Okay, so good afternoon, everyone. Today is Tuesday, July 14th, 2020. Time is 1:02 p.m. This is a special meeting with our Kootenai County Sheriff's Office, attending Commissioners Duncan, Brooks, and Filios. I am officially calling this meeting to order, and our one and only and potential action item is the jail body scanner funding options. Do we have any changes to the agenda? Hearing none, off we go. So who would like to lead us in the discussion? Dan, please. Undersheriff Dan Mattos, taking the stage, or podium, excuse me.
I'm going to turn this over shortly to Lieutenant Hutchinson. But since we last talked, the ideas that we had towards funding the body scanner were usurped by the fact that our medical budget seems to be growing, and so the funding mechanisms aren't the same as they would have been before. We met with Nanci Plouffe, and Nanci helped us go through some of this stuff. I think she may have some ideas on this, but I think in general what we plan on doing is presenting a lease option today rather than a purchase option, simply because I don't know that we're going to be able to, at this point, come up with the total dollars necessary based on what we thought was, you know, the flexibility in our existing budget.
Right.
So with that said, I'm going to turn it over to Lieutenant Hutchinson, who can talk to you about the lease.
So it's my understanding, I'm filling in for Captain John Holchek. He's on vacation, so
Yep.
He's kind of taking the lead on this, but he's asked me to step in.
Sure.
My understanding is you don't want to hear about the need is more than the funding mechanism.
Precisely.
Talking to the company, they've offered us a lease option. What they suggested was a $20,000 down payment or deposit towards the body scanner, with the additional $98,750 to be paid on September 30th if funds are available. If we can pay it off then we own the thing free and clear. If we don't have the funds to pay it off September 30th, they roll over into a lease option. At that point, it would be a 7-year lease option at about just shy of $20,000 a year. At any point during that 7-year period, they're offering us to pay off the remaining balance of the body scanner with no further interest incurred after the final payment.
Term of the lease option is how long?
7 years.
Oh, 7 years, you said that. Okay.
$19,760 per year.
Does that include the training?
Do you know about the training aspect of it? I'm sorry, I don't have that right in front of me.
I'm assuming that's the same as what we're going to pay.
It was my understanding, talking to Captain Holchek, that the training was bundled into the purchase price of $118,000.
Yep, I just want to make sure if we go ahead with the lease option, that we don't get stuck without training.
I can follow up on that.
We have a lot of test deputies lighting up around the jail.
Mm-hmm. And then do you know how much interest that would be over the 7 years?
It would be $2,705 a year for a total of $18,940 over the course of 7 years.
And is there a prepayment penalty?
No.
Okay. So if you enter into the lease in October for 7 years and you pay it off in December, then?
Just interest up to the point it's paid off, but at any
Gotcha.
point in that 7 years.
Right, no prepayment.
Okay.
Okay. So if you were to run this out to term, with a $20,000 down payment and theoretically run it out 7 years, we would be paying approximately $158,000. What's the price of the scanner?
$118,750.
So running the lease option out to term is going to cost us another 40 grand. Oof.
No, I think you said 19,000 over the course of the 7 years.
Correct, $18,940.
Right,
So
but you're also paying $20,000 up front.
which would take the remaining balance down to $98,750.
Oh, okay, so I'm too high at 150, is it 138 then?
Yeah, just
Yes.
140,000.
Or just shy of 140, I'm sorry, okay. So still, we're looking at almost $20,000 in interest. Dena, what's the likelihood that we'd have, I know, I'm sorry, I don't mean to put you on the spot.
Okay, I'll
there you go.
We cannot do a debt. I mean, we had to finagle the 3-year lease with the vehicles. That was a special thing, but I'll have to talk to legal, I'm gonna have to talk to the treasurer and figure this out, because lawfully you can't go into debt without public consent. So, there's a lot of work to do to figure out what that would look like. Just on its face, I mean, that's a lot of extra to pay for something. I mean, really, in the big scheme of things, this isn't a lot of money. I don't know that we want to be in debt for 7 years for something that we could buy cash.
So the question that I have, what's the likelihood that we could pay this off by the end of the fiscal year?
Well, that depends on you. You can take fund balance and buy it today.
Nancy, do you have any thoughts?
I think that there is,
Do you microphone?
You need
Sorry.
to, if you want to sit, you can take this mic.
I think that there is a probability that they will have the money, and it's still never.
You gotta do the,
Yeah, but put the little dial up there.
Sorry.
Sit, you can sit.
I was going to say, I think that there is a probability they will have money in the sheriff's budget somewhere, not necessarily in the jail budget, but I think that there is a possibility if they are careful with their spending over the next 3 months, that they'll have the money to buy this by the end of the fiscal year.
so I wanted to wait till August. I didn't know why we were doing this a month early, because August is gonna, just give us one more month under the belt to figure out, what their projections are looking at. Captain Deke, I don't want to put you on the spot, so if you can't answer, that's fine. You and I talked a while ago about how the med were being charged medical and stuff. Did you ever contact the company and figure that?
We're still in process of that.
Okay. Okay, so that's a good thing. That may play into it as well. Briefly, it was just kind of, we pay a monthly for the medical, and then there's other medical on top of it, and Captain Deke, I understand, was looking at how to reduce that other medical on top. So that plays into it for me. When you have staffing at the jail, is that based on the number of inmates? Obviously, you've got minimum, but then as inmates increase, you have to have more detention deputies? Okay.
When our population was low for the COVID situation, we dropped our minimum staffing numbers to more appropriately reflect the population.
Okay.
It's since been climbing, so usually
Right.
we're at or above capacity, so our minimum staffings don't change. But
Okay.
rare occasions, the population does drop, we do reduce our minimums too.
Okay, so potentially if IDOC came and got their 55 people, you might be able to reduce your overtime a little bit?
Potentially. With different classification levels of inmates, we can't just empty full units
Sure.
out.
No,
But,
I understand that.
It would certainly help the cause.
Okay.
It would also reduce our income as well.
And why are these folks, I understand that the state hasn't picked their folks up since the 28th of June.
That sounds about correct.
Why is that?
They traditionally pick up every other week. They haven't since they've had large parts of their population test positive for COVID. They've stopped picking up
Okay.
inmates, and we're stuck with them for the time being.
Does anybody at the sheriff's office talk with them about that?
Sheriff is
And
very loud.
inquire as
He
to,
makes many phone calls.
and what's the answer?
Have you heard if Ben has talked to you all directly lately?
Not recently, there was an email this morning from Barry McHugh letting us know that as well, they had no intention of picking up any further prisoners, and we don't know when they're going to get them. But I might add that that's revenue. That also accounts to additional revenue that goes to the general fund.
Yeah, but how much do they pay us?
$75 a day,
And what's our cost? 65, 70?
101.
Oh, for goodness sakes, we're losing money.
And plus overtime, paying for overtime on top of that. So, yeah, it doesn't sound like them being here is a good thing. So, but
And
I
who
mean, if they
fixes that
don't.
rate?
The state sets the rate.
Yeah, there was legislation to
Oh,
cut that
okay,
down this year, and it didn't pass.
It's really kind of a philosophical debate. If we have one more inmate in custody. Is it gonna cost us $101 exactly? Probably not, because we're still gonna have the same number of staff members. If we drop significantly, we can reduce our minimums, but
Right.
it's kind of a fluid.
So Nancy, where do you think the revenue might come from, or decreased expenses?
The decreased in expenses, there might be some salary savings that might cover it, or depending upon their B-budget expenses, their operating expenses, those might come in under. If the last medical expense bill we got was only $16,000 over the $150,000 monthly payment, if it stays that low over the next 3 months, then that would be great. But for the last 6 months, we've averaged $84,000 over that $150,000 mark. So if it's high again for the next 2 or 3 months, that's going to be a problem. So it's hard to say whether or not they're going to have their budget, money in their budget to fix this. But I think that there's a good possibility they will at the end of the year.
Dena?
I was just gonna say too, if there's been any COVID testing that they've been charged for in the jail, that's reimbursable.
Oh, I'm sorry.
And some of the overtime might be reimbursable as well.
Yeah, I mean, there's reimbursable expenses directly related to COVID that we could get money back from.
So the
When will we-
chances
when
that
will
they're
we
going to
know-
have the money is pretty
We
good.
would have to have the details submitted if there were COVID tests in the jail that we paid for. If we had that backup, then that could be reimbursed, submitted for reimbursement, it's reimbursable. So that would help offset some costs.
Okay.
So to me, it just sounds like we're about, 4 weeks, 6 weeks too shy to address this. So I'm willing to wait. I mean, it'd be great to have, last year, but is there any other thing that's on fire? I mean, can we wait another 6 weeks and see where we're at financially and maybe go from there?
We've already waited 3 years. 6 weeks is probably not going to be a big deal. Go right ahead.
Can we estimate the amount of overtime that we're going to be reimbursed? Can we estimate that now?
Dena, would you mind coming up here? I think Nancy's struggling to pick you up.
Yeah, you got this one too.
Here you go, you could sit here.
I can sit here.
Either,
Yeah,
okay,
I can sit
all
here.
right.
Case, go ahead.
Go ahead.
No, you go for it.
We've waited 3 years, but, this thing keeps boiling to the surface. And then it boils, we turn the flame down and it settles, and then it boils back up to the surface. And when we decided to have this meeting, I'm going to use my words, I think we just need to sit and talk about this like adults, not that we're not, but try to work, try to work our way through this.
Sure.
If I read what I see with the board, everybody agrees that the scanner is something that we should have. I don't, whether you were to vote on it right now or not, it's not what I'm talking about. I'm just saying I think everybody agrees that the scanner is something that we should have. And the question here is, what's the best mechanism to get there? And again, the reason we schedule the meeting is to try to figure out, okay, let's sit down and talk about this and figure it out. But if we can arrive at a mechanism now, I don't have a problem, we don't have a problem waiting a couple more weeks. But I would like to be able to get on some course to where we're not going to come back here again and have another meeting and then go away, try to figure it out again. It would be nice to have some course to follow. So with that said, I'll let Dena go ahead with her.
Yeah, go ahead,
report.
Dena.
Well, we had our COVID group meeting today, and I think it was Rachel Irish was saying that there were some COVID testing being done in the jail, and all of that's reimbursable. So if we can get that quantified, then we can give you a number of what we could apply for reimbursement. Now, we've looked at overtime. We have codes for overtime. You all got my email yesterday. The amount of over and above what was budgeted that's reimbursable, much of that is in the jail. Unloaded, it's about $35,000, $40,000. I mean, it's not a ton of money. We really don't have a whole lot to reimburse because we just haven't been affected as much as other areas.
Right.
So, I mean, like Nancy's saying, they can probably squeak by if you want to say, okay, if you want to wait, we just have you know, a better handle on what numbers are left. We can go back and look and see how much would get reimbursed for COVID testing. I don't know that it would be material, but we can definitely get that number.
Well, I'm fine with like the first week of September, you know, auditor, Nanci if need be, and the jail or, you know, undersheriff meeting together and figuring out where we are. Yeah, it looks great. Or no, we're just still on the, you know, the crazy train. But if it looks great, then bring it forward in a business meeting in September.
Okay.
Yeah, go ahead, Dan.
I wouldn't oppose that, except that if we don't have the money, then we're gonna come back at you with the lease. And I don't think that the lease is an unfair request. And I would equate that to, everybody here would like to go buy their car cash too.
And I
But
do.
sometimes you gotta pay interest. Well,
Not
there's a lot
everybody.
of people that pay interest. Let's
Right.
just put it that way. And, you know, the bottom line here, if it's at all possible, and if we're working on this together, we'll work, you know, and wait and see what dollars, obviously, that's the preferential way to do it. But if that doesn't come to fruition, do I have some commitment, or can I get some commitment from the board that they would entertain the lease?
I will not entertain a lease.
I already knew that. But how about you guys?
I will,
Yeah,
especially since there's no penalty
Yeah.
if we pay it off.
And that's the bottom line, I think what you said there. We're not gonna, I know it's more work for you, Dena, you know, and nobody wants to pay the interest. But you know what, if we do come up with a surplus of money, then we can pay it off. But alls I wanna know is that we're on a path to get there, and we'll, you know, if we can pay for it cash, great. If not, then what I'm hearing is ostensibly there's two people here that would support the lease.
well, no, I didn't say that. Okay.
Oh, I
Here's-
thought you would.
No.
Okay.
Here's here's how I view it. Dena made an interesting point. The money's in fund balance, we can pay it today, okay? That's not the point. The point is that may not be the most judicious route to take, okay? So what I'm thinking, and I really want to avoid the lease, because if we have to go through a public hearing,
Complications.
yeah, I really don't want to go down that road. So my feeling is this: if Dena can identify the amount of money that potentially is coming back through COVID, we don't have to wait till the first week of September. I'd say that's outside. If Dena knows it within the next couple of weeks, and it looks like it's going to make sense, we can proceed.
Okay.
So I think well, I don't know if I can speak for both, but I think there's a general agreement that we need the scanner. Is that a fair
Yeah,
statement?
I'm not against the project at all, but it was brought mid-season. It's not budgeted. To me, it's very not transparent because we didn't put it in the budget process in the beginning. If you have additional monies that weren't spent because of this or that, I'm willing to entertain it. But still, before September, I think is premature because of the medical issue. So even if you come back with, okay, this is reimbursable, that's reimbursable, you still could have a huge bill in September that would negate all of the reimbursements. So that's my concern. That's why I just wanted to put it off in September, look at things. I'm not against the project. I just want to make sure that we're, doing right by it.
I don't necessarily disagree with your logic, but I just would ask that you guys see it from our way just a little bit. So we bring the project to fruition, or we bring it to the table, and we say, okay, here's how we're going to pay for it. And we were ready to go. And then, by no fault of anybody's, certainly not yours and not ours either, we can't control the medical costs.
Oh, sure.
And so to your point, Leslie, I understand you're trying to be responsible. Understanding, though, that it is something that's important, I would just ask that if for whatever reason, Dena's dive or Nancy's dive into the numbers, doesn't show that it's going to work, that we are still going to remain open to some optional way of getting that scanner in the jail. Whether it's fund balance, whether it's the lease, maybe it's not perfect, but again, my whole intention here was just trying to work together.
Go ahead, please.
I have a quick question. If IDOC is leaving 50 prisoners in our jail for COVID-related reasons, then is that reimbursable? The cost of housing them,
That's a really good question.
right?
Yeah.
Well, they're paying us the $75 a day anyway.
But there's still $25 a day per inmate that they're not covered.
Maybe that's an idea. I'll take the money any way we
Yeah.
can get it.
I think,
long as
Dan,
it's
to
legal.
to your point, I think there's general consensus that we want to go forward with it. Whether it's going to be fund balance, which I think we're trying to avoid, and whether it's a lease, which I think we'd really want to avoid, is how do we go about doing this? And if we can find the money, and the medical costs are somewhat contained, we can go forward.
I don't think that's unreasonable at all to wait to see if the money's
Yeah,
there.
let-
And
How much money are we actually talking?
what's that?
How much money are we actually talking that we're short?
We're gonna need 120 grand. to
No,
buy
but I
the-
think Bill's question is, you felt you had some of that money.
Oh, I see what you're
How short do you think you are?
Well, we're completely short based on the projections of the medical, but we had all of the money, in out-of-county housing and in a prior program that we didn't purchase, Sapphire records keeping program, there was enough money to buy it. And that's, how we were going forward with the purchase until we, had the predictions that the medical stuff was gonna go so high. And so, to answer your question, we're completely short based on those medical costs.
At this point?
Yeah, I would just caution too with the lease, there's legal ramifications. Right now, the accounting rules surrounding leases have been tightened up. There's a lot of stuff that has to be taken care of before a lease can be done. And again, given the materiality of the purchase, a lease, by the time you go through all the work of doing it, it'll cost us not only the interest, but also just the
Manpower.
admin time and the time with our auditors and all of that. To me, if you indemnify the sheriff at the end of the year and we have to pull some money from fund balance, it's a huge savings when you consider manpower and reporting and
Right. I guess one of my issues too is every year we ask you what's your priorities, and it just, jail vans, patrol cars, that was your priority last year. This was not a priority last year. And then somehow mid-year it becomes a priority. So that's just kind of my.
Well, it's always been a priority, but there's competing priorities, and we have to, just like you guys have to do,
Yep.
we have to, at the time, prioritize them and put them in an order. But, I feel relatively confident that there probably is. I feel fairly confident there's money in our budget that's going to be left over by the end of the fiscal year, and but I do respect where you're coming from. But if you're okay waiting for a couple more weeks, but being able to come back to the table and do something about this, then
I still rather wait till September to give us a better look at that medical, unless Captain Deke gets somewhere with the medical people and we can rectify that situation. So just something more solid that, we've been overcharged, now they're going to give us a refund or, whatever. I mean, that would be really
I think
helpful.
there's consensus, Dan, that the scanner is needed and that we really would prefer not to go with the lease. So it's just a question of how can we affect this purchase and do it wisely. So hang with us.
Okay.
You hung with us for 3 years on this.
Well,
so
again,
What's
and
another
I'm
6 or
starting-
7 weeks?
I'm chasing my tail here. We're going
get
around in
it.
circles. I guess, again, all I want to do is if Dena and Nanci come up with what they feel as though is a viable thing, can we get back here and talk about it and get it ordered?
And it's okay if it comes out of the sheriff's budget as a whole and not
Yes.
necessarily out of the jail budget.
Yes, that's fine.
Fair enough.
And that is putting our best foot forward as far as what the priority is, because some of it may come out of somebody else's budget and they're not going to like it, but that's for
Now,
me to worry about.
are you satisfied with that?
I'm satisfied that, that there's a willingness of the board to go forward, but I'm a bottom line guy, and the bottom line is I don't know how we're going to get there yet. I'm counting on these guys, so.
If anybody can figure it out, they can. Okay.
All right, thank you.
Yes, sir. Come right forward.
I reached out to Captain Hall, checked and verified that training is included in the purchase price and a 5-year warranty as well.
Thank you.
Okay, great. Thanks a lot. Anything else? Thank you, Dan. Public comment? None? 1:27, meeting adjourned. Thank you.